What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. If you've been listening for the past couple of episodes, you may have noticed a dramatic drop in the audio quality compared to the recording tonight. And just thought I'd give you a little heads up on what's going on behind the scenes here. I had a computer bite the dust, the main one that I use for recording, over the past few years, and replaced it with a Chromebook. And you might say, why would you replace it with a Chromebook if you're a computer person? But honestly, I've switched primary development over to the Chromebook. I finished up the multis code on the Chromebook. It's an extremely comfortable and versatile computer to use for that. Unfortunately, the thing that it lacks is audio recording capabilities that are consistent as they are in Linux. So for those of a technical mind or a technical bent here, let me just fill you in on some stuff. One of the cool things about the Chromebook is that you can run full Linux inside a small cheroot environment, and in that way I was running Audacity and OBS, the streaming software that I use, and a few other things, as well as programming the multi. So really I had this one machine that was doing everything. Well, Google came out with an update, which I'd been looking forward to, called Crostini. And Crostini's big promise was that Linux apps would get top-level billing, meaning the Chromebook applications would be able to exchange data with and handle dealing with pass-through of audio and so forth. The system used to get extremely confused if you had multiple audio sources like a Linux application and then a top-level Google application that were both trying to use the audio hardware. So because I kind of had to rig stuff to make it work, with everything that I wanted it to do, I thought this would be an excellent thing. So I switched over to that, just to see how it worked, and it works beautifully, and I really, really, really like it from a development standpoint. It makes life extremely easy. Your Linux applications run in a container, and you can blow that container away or keep it, and you can exchange files between the two very easily, although you could do that with the previous setup. But as with most things, there's a downside. The downside is that there is no longer access to the audio hardware whatsoever, and there is no access to 2D or 3D acceleration. So depending on the applications that you're using and what you're trying to do, this can pose a problem. So for example, if I'm attempting to record a podcast, I am out of luck. So thankfully, the Chromebook, universe allows me to use both Android applications as well as web-based applications. So I've been looking around for something that is not necessarily easy to use, but a multi-track audio recording software that will function either inside a browser completely or via Android. And the Android offerings are not necessarily fantastic. So I was kind of stuck with browser-based, and keeping in mind that I need something that can edit as well. So what I ended up doing was using this software, this web-based software called Soundtrap, and it's a multi-track audio recording software that can be used by multiple people at once. Its primary purpose is education, but you can record things like podcasts on it as well. So tried that out. The super unfortunate thing is that there is no editing capability whatsoever, and there is typically a long wait between when you finish recording and the system makes it available to download, which then I could import into an editor. The difficult thing is if I was doing it on the one computer, the Chromebook there, then I wouldn't be able to hear anything as I was editing it. So I'm kind of back to the original problem. And that's why things have sounded kind of rough over the past couple episodes. But going forward, I fixed up a different computer, and this is my previous development computer, and that also ran into problems where it wouldn't boot. But I just took a minute and fixed that up because I knew I needed to record tonight, and I wasn't really thrilled about having to make that sacrifice again of audio quality. I appreciate everybody who listens to the show, and I wanted to make it at least listenable for you, if nothing else. So, all that said, let's move on to some non-solid state tech here and talk about Robo-Frenzy. So, since I got back from New York, I've been working on Robo-Frenzy, just kind of chipping away at it, doing things like desoldering all the switches that were on the trip banks that I just installed into the Robo-Frenzy cab. These trip banks will control the octopus tentacle positions. So each tentacle on each side of the octopus is going to move via these trip banks. So it'll trip any of 4 different relays in order to make the appropriate segments light for the octopus. Keeping in mind that the game is backlit animated, so all the action's happening on the back glass through light bulbs. So I took that and started wiring and wired up the timer unit. Now the timer unit previously was going to handle doing those animations. So it was going to actually pass through the lamp feeds for each of the lamps. But I quickly realized that there just weren't enough rivets in order to do what I wanted to do. Even with 40 positions, there just wasn't enough. So what I ended up doing was wiring up that timer unit to trip those individual trip relays, and the final one that trips will allow a motor switch to cause that bank to reset. One thing which is still unclear is whether or not there is enough time for that bank to reset after the motor makes a particular rotation, because the timing is critical. As the timer unit steps, the score motor is running, and as the motor turns, it's going to continue to step up the timer, and each step of the timer unit is going to cause those tentacles to move. So what I may have to do is reconfigure that timer unit so that there is a dead rivet in between the last trip and the first trip of the next bank, if that makes sense. I'm unsure if it will take that long, because resetting a trip bank happens fairly quickly, and we'll just have to see. But I'm pretty excited about that. Wiring in all of the wires has taken quite a bit of time so far for that timer unit. And I mounted the player unit and realized that I didn't document it at all. So unfortunately, I have 5 different fingers, and they're all wired to do something. I could make guesses at a couple of them, but I really have no idea what I was thinking on some of them. So I've got to go back and look at the schematic and see if I can reverse engineer what I was doing. And if not, then I need to redo the whole thing. Not the end of the world. It was nowhere near as complex as the timer unit, so I'm not really broken up about it. It's just kind of annoying. So the other thing that I've done is wire up those trip banks. I might have mentioned that, but I think I glazed over it, so glossed over it rather. So the trip banks that are handling the tentacle animations are wired up for coil voltage, but I haven't yet wired up the lamps, and that's where lamps come in. Now, as I mentioned, because the game uses backlit animation in order to handle everything that's going on, that's visible to the player. I needed to, first of all, run a bunch of wire up to the back glass area, but secondly, I had to have a way to prototype that back glass area in a way that would allow me to make changes very quickly if I screw something up, which I undoubtedly will. So I reached out to the custom pinball community because I was thinking, I would just route out a little board and it didn't have to be perfect and I could just label it, this is Tentacle 1, Position 1, or whatever. But I realized that would probably be less helpful than being able to see the basic construct, when I'm looking at it. So I thought of foam core, and the problem with foam core is that you make a giant mess when you're cutting into that, especially dependent upon the thickness of the foam core. So it's also pretty fragile, and you can break it, and it's just generally kind of hard to work with as far as doing something like this. So I reached out to the custom pinball community and said, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I'm wondering if there's an easier way to do it. And somebody responded and said, well, yeah, just use cardboard. And cardboard, I thought, was ingenious, because you can very quickly mock it up. You just need a sharp knife, but a relatively small one, and then you can stab screws through it to hold the sockets in place. You can solder directly on it. It really is a good material for this type of prototyping. So what I've done is I have made a mock-up of the cardboard, and I am now mounting the lamp sockets and wiring them with lamp commons. And the next thing that I'll do is wire in the actual activation wires for each lamp. So some of those are fed from the player unit, for example, the player up lights, as well as the game over light, which is fed from the tilt relay, and the positional relays for the tentacles. And finally, there's a little bit of GI that I've put in here. So all that's going to be run from the same transformer. I do have two transformers that are generating 6 volts though, so I could actually split the load if I need to. That's kind of the handy thing about having two transformers in there. I have approximately 90 some bulbs at the moment, and I think I'll be adding some more. So there's quite a bit that needs to be wired in. But it's looking pretty cool, and I'm excited about it. I was hopeful last weekend that I would get it to a state where I could plug it in and just see what it does. Just watch it catch on fire, basically. But unfortunately, I didn't get quite that far. So maybe that's my goal for this weekend. Things with the family are fairly busy these days, so just that time of the year. And we'll see, but that's my hope. I will keep you all updated. So next, I wanted to reiterate that I'm running a little contest here, and just waiting for a few more entries before I start shipping out the beautiful prints. These prints are the Bingo Row artwork that I commissioned Ryan Clater to do for me for the York show, and I happen to have some extra ones. So I thought if anybody could send me photos of their 5 lines that were done recently, I'll be happy to mail you your very own print. So just shoot me an email to foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com along with a photo of your 5 line, and we'll see what we can do here. Now, honor system, but I would prefer that it be one that you make recently rather than one that you made, sometime in the past. So let's move on to today's featured game. Today's game is 1952's Quartette by Gottlieb. Quartette is one of Gottlieb's trap hole games from the 1950s, where your primary goal is to trap one or more balls and enable playfield features elsewhere. So in Quartette's case, there are 4 trap holes which are arranged right in the center of the playfield up near the top, and each trap hole will light a corresponding color pop bumper. There are 4 pop bumpers arrayed in a semicircle up above the trap holes, red, yellow, green, and white. And each of the trap holes are arrayed white, red, yellow, and green top to bottom. If you manage to lock all 4 balls in the trap holes, then it will light special at the bottom center rollover and award you 1 replay immediately. There, as with most games of this era, are 3 different goals with which you can achieve replays. So there is that trap hole mechanism. There is score, and based on various score thresholds, you can achieve replays, and then points. Now, when the pop bumpers are lit, they start awarding points, and values starting typically at about 31 points will award you a replay. So that would be 31 lit pop bumper hits. Pretty tough thing to do. Also, arrayed on the sides of the playfield, there are angled switches, which are behind rubbers. They're kind of behind sections which are reminiscent of slings, let's say slingshots, where there might be 2 switches behind 1 plastic. They're more vertically oriented than slingshots, but the same idea is present. You hit those and you bounce away. They're not coil activated. There's nothing behind them that's going to shoot your ball away. It's just a way to differentiate the top and the bottom so that you know if you're hitting the number that you're attempting to hit. So these things which are arrayed on the sides are numbers, and they're 1 through 8. That's a sequence that you can complete, and when you complete the sequence, it will also light the special rollover down at the bottom center. Now, if you manage to trap all 4 balls and hit 1 through 8, then extra special will light. The special rollover normally awards 1 replay, and when extra special is lit, it awards 5 replays. The other thing which is interesting about this game is that it has a bonus down at the bottom. And for each hole that is filled with a ball of the trap holes, it will move that bonus unit 1 position until you max it out, and then it will award you the final step automatically. There are also 2 rollover buttons, each of which is worth 50,000 in score when it's lit. In order to light it, you have to drain either on the left or right-hand side. Now, the reason I didn't say in the outlanes is because this game doesn't have any outlanes. It's got 3 drains, basically. A center drain, which is that special rollover, and then a left and right drain, which are the left and right rollover button activators. And the flipper arrangement on this is also different. It is Quartette. So there are 4 of them, and they're arrayed in 2 traditional orientations where the flipper is angled downwards and flips upwards on the left and right hand side. Gottlieb used this format a few times, and it's one that I've come to enjoy and appreciate. I like when companies tried something new with flipper arrangements, and especially nowadays there's something about a game where it upends your expectations. Nothing feels safe. It feels quite fun. So one other note about the point system. There are 4 rollovers, white, red, green, and yellow, which are also enabled when you trap a ball in the corresponding colored trap hole. And those rollovers award you 1 point every time you roll over them. They are arranged near the trap holes up at the top. Now, I've only played this game one time at the Orc Show last year, I believe, 2017. And I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like a bingo player has a bit of an advantage on these trap hole games, where nudging the game into or out of a particular hole is part of the skill set that you have to develop for the bingos. And so the difference being that you can kind of flail your way into a pretty decent game on Quartette, just by the virtue of all the trap holes being arrayed vertically. But as with most games of this era, you are mostly fighting yourself because there's so many different ways to win that you need to be paying attention to one or more in order to succeed. Very fun game. I really enjoyed it, and I certainly hope to play one again. The artwork is of a stage show, and there are dancers, 4 of them, on the playfield, 2 up close and 2 far away. On the back glass, the same line dancers are there, and then there's a barbershop quartet in the foreground. The score is arrayed around the dancers, and millions are to the upper left. Score is also displayed in small quarter notes at the bottom. Very cool design. I like the fact that the musical staff kind of rotates around the points. As with most cabinets of this era, the design, the stencil, is very busy. There's a blue base coat, and the head is striped like a barber's pole. The body has alternating a white stripe with a blue stripe in the center, I should say, and then 5 squares, each with a circle inside and covering a larger circle on the outside of the squares. The front of the game has 3 squares again, with 3 circles in the center, and then 2 circles in between the space where the squares are not touching. Very attractive cabinet. Again, very fun game. Give it a shot if you come across one. All right, well, that's all for tonight. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to me on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Google Play Music, on Facebook, on Twitter, at Bingo Podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast. Or you can listen to me on my website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.